and distinguished guests and dear participants. My view will be a technical view towards this BWC, how to implement it and how we can build confidence building measures. So a lot have been talked about the legislations and what we are doing and things like that, but I will be discussing here and there that how we can implement those things. So my first main aim is how BWC implementation can control the bioterrorism nationally and internationally. I will be talking about bioterrorism and BWC, mentioning a little bit of the history and challenges due to emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases and their contribution to bioterrorism. The topic I am talking today is under discussion since 1990, but in 2001, the world of emerging infectious diseases is coined for it, to emphasize the alarming situation of bioterrorism faced even after the implementation of BWC. Let's see what we mean from the word emerging diseases and how they contribute to and create bioterrorism and ultimately result in a threat to our national security as well as to international security. In the last, I will discuss how we can control it nationally by following confidence building measures and then giving some recommendations. Bioterrorism, if we look at it, it is the intentional release or threat of release of biological agents, viruses, bacteria, fungi, or toxins in order to cause harm to human population, livestock, and agriculture. Nowadays, sometimes it is very difficult to differentiate between intentional and unintentional release. So actually, you have to prepare yourself against both of them. The history of bioterrorism is very old. Everybody has gone through it. So I will go quickly. So you can see it starts from the 6th century. Next one. Then many acts have taken place. Next one. So everybody has talked about it. Now, then we came in 1972, the Biological Weapon Conventions, we talked about it, came into being. The convention prohibits the stockpiling and offensive use of biological agents. But we see, even ratifying it, Russia continued to carry out its bioresearch program with more than 60,000 workers. So there's some problem there. So let's see what is the problem. If we look at BWC, in 1972 entered into force, signed in 1975, it is the first, it has already been said, multilateral disarmament treaty of biological and toxic weapons. Now after 43 years, even after 43 years, we see that 181 countries have signed to it. The most important alarming drawback of this treaty as compared to CWC is the absence of international verification organization, which we have talked about already. And the convention by itself has no provision to verify compliance, which hampers the technical implementation of BWC. You have to see this keeping in view the biological agents. That biological agents are more dangerous than the chemical and nuclear weapons, and there is no procedure to verify that how many states have biological weapons or have the capability to develop biological weapons. In 1975, it was thought that only 1 or 2 member states other than superpowers had the biological weapons, but now 12 to 15 countries have such weapons. The international community is working hard for the sake of mankind to stop biological weapons being used as biological agents being used as weapons. Next one. BWC, as we see, BWC was ratified by 179 countries in 1972, but even after that there are incidences when the mankind is threatened by bioterrorism, such as in 1979, 1984, 1991, 1995, and 2001. I'm not going separately on these things, but you see there is a continuous threat to the mankind. This has pressed the bioscientists and decision makers to think about how to confirm the threat of bioterrorism to national and international security due to different types of bacteria, viruses, toxins, and diseases caused by them has created real challenges. So if we see at BWC, we see that 12 to 14 countries, which we now are 12, haven't signed the convention. But even the 181 countries which has signed the convention, then agreed to it, do not have any legislation for implementation. Besides that, we know there is no verification procedure. So this is the drawback. This put all the states on stake of bioterrorism. There is no universal method for controlling of diseases outbreak and to cover the essence, science and technology advances. The matter of BWC is dealt by 4 signatory states such as UK, US, Northern Ireland, and they run their affairs. So major issue remains the same out there. It has no provision to verify compliance. All states potentially are at risk. So we have to see that how we can control the diseases outbreak and to cover the SMT advances. Only stringent national implementation procedures are the answer, and confidence building measures can help to control threat for biological materials. Next one. As everybody mentioned, that easy bioproduction of lot of bacteria has made bioterrorism threat easy. To control this and to put a lot of money in bioresearch, the US coined the term such as of emerging infectious diseases in 2001. It has 2 categories, the new emerging infectious diseases and re-emerging infectious diseases. Emerging infectious diseases means a disease of future but with some R&D, whereas new emerging diseases has no R&D. So actually under these 2 categories, we started thinking of future suspected diseases and their control. The third term is re-emerging infectious diseases. These are more dangerous, especially for developing countries, because these diseases reappear with more resistant bacteria which are difficult to control. Next one. There are some 8. I have shown that there are some 8 emerging diseases mentioned by WHO, but basically they are in Africa, Asia, China, and South Africa. All infectious diseases are bacterial or viral and divided into 3 categories. Next one. Next slide. 3 categories. The important factor I like to mention here that developed countries have their vaccine banks in which they keep important vaccines for their whole population in case of emergency. Whereas in developing countries, we can only imagine this and are very far away from these facilities, and we have not even started any work in this direction. With reference to new emerging diseases and re-emerging diseases, I like to discuss the important contributory factor of climate change, which play effective role in re-emerging of infectious diseases. Weather changes such as precipitation, temperature, drought, and flood have direct or indirect effects on the outbreak of infectious diseases transmitted by rodents, mosquitoes, and water. Research groups are needed to develop predictive framework to integrate knowledge from ecophysiology and modeling for effective control. Next one. Here I like to discuss the most important potential of the bacteria and viruses, due to which bioterrorism is more dangerous than chemical and nuclear terrorism. It is the incubation delay or period which takes 7 to 20 days of disease to appear. No nation can protect its population by simply screening travelers in order to control bioterrorism. As a first priority, we have to develop stringent surveillance methods, rapid and sensitive screening procedures, and detection and efficient and fast method of reporting. Next one. Here I like to mention, before this I like to mention that disease early warning system is one of the things in which 3 organizations in the country can collectively play an important role. Rural and district health centers, Ministry of Health, PMRC, and NIH. The first two is surveillance and collecting of the samples, and the third for R&D finding to control the disease. When we look at BWC, it consists of many articles. But here we are concentrating on Article 4 and 10 and how we can implement these articles. So Article 4 is to take any national measures necessary to implement the provision of the BWC, and Article 10, next one. Article 10 is to do all the above in a way that encourages the peaceful uses of biological sciences and technology. So we will be concentrating on these two to have been implemented as national legislation and confidence building measures. To fully implement BWC, state parties are obliged to translate the commitments of convention into effective national actions. These necessary measures depend on circumstances and legal system of each state party, and as such, there can be different approaches to implement the provision of the convention nationally. Actually, the most important thing is the implementation, and the 7th Review Conference in 2011 has emphasized on this. In my view, there are two important things. First, development of awareness and code of conduct and code of ethics in academic and research organizations, along with industry. And second, which I'm talking about today, is the strengthening of the capacity building for surveillance and detection of emerging and emerging infections. If we don't do it nationally, the 8th Review Conference in 2016, and after the discussion of more than 10 years, has given more important role to the international organization. Well, I will put in brackets, interfering in any country, mentioning as of coordinating and assistant, but given a leverage by adding when required and upon request of state parties. Brigadier Amir will discuss this in more detail. Nationally, we can provide protection by taking important steps of vaccination surveillance. Next one. So we can take two steps. First, vaccination, and second, the surveillance, sensitivity and connectivity. This is the method how we can control the bioterrorism. Next one. So, improving surveillance, sensitivity and connectivity is that how we can control these things. Next one. The biological terrorist attack will first become known hours and days after execution, only when victims begin to appear. Smallpox has an incubation period of 7 days. Sensitivity refers how likely a disease will be recognized by a physician or a health worker. And connectivity refers to how quickly and accurately the information gets passed vertically from clinical level to a state, international authorities, or horizontal within all levels. So this is very important, and we have to develop our capabilities in this. Next one. So confidence building measures such as national procedures on the risk assessment of pathogens, of possessing and handling and transportation, licensing and registration of facilities, awareness and education program for the life scientists, and a national body to implement these, which have a lot of difficulties after the implementation of 15th Amendment. Pakistan has done many efforts, which has already been mentioned by Kamran Akhtar, Zafar, Zawaragdi, and all these things which Pakistan has already done is mentioned here. I am in one or two committees where doing work and helping those committees to implement those things. But I still say that a national, next one, that the enhanced biosafety and biosecurity in Pakistan, to increase prevention and preparedness, to improve policy making, to identify sources for resources for implementation and recommendation. And the last is the capacity building. A national action plan could be implemented, but today I like mention and put forward 3 immediate recommendations directly relevant to the topic of emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases. The first is to increase teaching and training by becoming members of 2 international organizations, the Australian Group and Zasner's Arrangement. Second, to introduce disease early warning system to increase surveillance, detection and reporting. And the third, to upgrade vaccine production facilities in the country and to develop a vaccine bank. At the end of the seminar, I will be chalking down some of the recommendations and will present to the participants. Thank you so much.
In the interest of saving time, because we are running a bit late,